ADesai, and I would like to welcome you to my senior capstone project entitled What Are You Doing? Creating Awareness for Water Conservation. My project really started this summer when I attended the Virginia Summer Residential Governor's School for Math, Science, and Technology at Lynchburg College. I studied water issues under Ms. Diana Duckworth, a professor at Lynchburg. Although it was a math and science camp, we didn't restrict ourselves to the scientific approach to water issues. We also integrated geographic, socioeconomic, and political aspects of water issues. And this really brought home that water issues are not someone else's problem. They don't only occur in developing countries, but they occur right here in the United States. And it is a very vital issue that we address in the 21st century. We read a lot about case studies in the United States in a book written by Alex Prudhomme called The Ripple Effect, and that inspired me to look at local water issues. It was one of the best months of my life, and if you're a junior or a sophomore, I would highly recommend this experience. As soon as I came back to Virginia Beach, I tried to get into contact with the Virginia Beach Public Utilities Office so that I could get some data on the amount of water that we use locally, as well as the amount of water that is brought in from outside sources, because this is an important aspect to maintain sustainability within a city like Virginia Beach. However, I was shocked to learn that all of the water that our city uses is imported from North Carolina through the Lake Gaston pipeline, as you can see in the map behind me. This is a really far distance to bring in water, and I had to completely change my project because I did not expect that we would not have sustainable resources within Virginia Beach. As a result, I went to the United States Geologic Survey, which is an organization that conducts research on stream flow and groundwater, as well as many other environmental aspects, in order to find different data. I stumbled upon a study by Mr. Kurt McCoy that monitors the groundwater levels within Virginia Beach, and this inspired me to take a more local focus on the sustainability within our city. What I really wanted to know was how we could ensure the sustainability of our local water sources for the future. As you can see in the map behind me, the products that people like Mr. McCoy create are pretty darn complicated. I had no idea how to read a lot of the analyses that he did because it's very data-centric and it only really applies to academia within environmentalism. And as a result, I wanted to go through different organizations such as Lynn Haven River Now and the Marine Science Museum in Virginia Beach in order to appeal to a different audience. Because I believed that these local issues were something that the everyday person should find important, and we really needed to get the entire city involved. I've been an aquarium volunteer since 8th grade, and I have a lot of experience with the kind of people that we have as visitors as a result. It's kind of shocking, but even with the super cool exhibits like Komodo dragons, like come on, Komodo dragons, people only look at them for about 7 seconds. And I knew that I needed to take an approach different from Mr. McCoy's through interactive devices, color, and new technology in order to bring people in. As a result, I wanted to appeal more to kids and therefore pull in families to learn about conservation. I arranged a meeting with the education staff at the aquarium, and they suggested that I create tables as a display for an annual event called the Trash Bash. It was really hard for me to figure out what I was going to do in my trash bash display for a while because I needed to do a broad amount of research without much depth in order to appeal to the most common audience. I finally narrowed down my focus to 4 main tenets that I believed would be most effective. The first would be reasons for conservation, because I wanted people to understand why they personally had an obligation to conserve. My second part was local issues, because I thought that this would further bring it back home, that we need to know what's going on in the ground below our feet. My third part would be ways to conserve so that people would actually act and get involved in this conservation effort. And then my fourth tenet would be ways to get children and families involved, such as hands-on activities, so that people would kind of get tricked into learning. I am terrible with the internet, and I had to get out of my comfort zone to really appeal to a larger audience. So if you want to pull out your phone at this point, you can look at that QR code, or for the website that's below. If you text, I'll probably cry, but if you want to just get that out, I'll give you a second, or not. Okay, so the water crisis is the first tenet of my project, and I wanted to show people international problems with water conservation, so I created things like a scrapbook of case studies throughout the world so people could see the differences in water issues globally, and then find out about the kinds of technology that is utilized to solve these different problems, from the recycling of gray water in Singapore to reductions on the amount of water people can use in Australia. And as a result, this would spread awareness for these kinds of technology and hopefully increase their development in the future. I kind of have to briefly go over the parts of my project, but if you'd like afterwards, my setup is in the back and you can see these actual materials. Next, I wanted to go over groundwater based off of Mr. McCoy's initial work. If you look at this graphic behind me, it is a model of Virginia Beach aquifers that Mr. McCoy has created, and it's basically supposed to sum up the complexities of issues in a town like Virginia Beach with a lot of urban sprawl and a unique situation between the freshwater and saltwater in our aquifers. Aquifer health is extremely important to tons of different fields within Virginia Beach, such as agriculture and tourism, and I believe that people needed a hands-on display of how these work. My next tenet would be virtual water, because people need to understand their own water footprint. People don't really understand that every product that you use requires water in the production of it, and by creating hands-on activities such as putting together the production of a t-shirt on the clothesline, as you can see in the picture below, little kids were really encouraged to take responsibility for the amount of water that they use. My next part was conservation, and I wanted to get out the message to the guests in a way where they didn't feel like they were getting preached to. So I drove out to Chesapeake, actually, and was donated a rain barrel, which I then got middle schoolers at Camps Landing Magnet School to paint, and then allowed guests to sign the barrel under the condition that they kind of learned about conservation from my exhibit, and this really brought people in. They liked the crafts and interactive activities that I had, and this convinced people to take their part in conservation. So when I went to Kemp's Landing, I didn't entirely have an idea of what I was going to do for the trash bash, but without the help of Mrs. McDowell, I would not have brought together the materials within my project so well. Because Ms. McDowell gave me a lot of insight into teaching, and as a result, I was able to do things like my rain barrel and my clothesline with t-shirts. The students at Kemp's Landing were also conducting their own capstone project, and they offered a lot of their work to me, as you can see on my website with their invention of Wetland Man. I filmed after school with them, and they introduced me to different green initiatives they have, like their garden, as well as painting the rain barrel, which was extremely helpful. And it was inspired by Vincent van Gogh, so that's why it's You Go Kemp's Landing. It's Starry Day, by the way. So I got some feedback from the aquarium staff. They really liked my display and said that it was a large highlight of the trash bash, because I really nailed the idea of tricking people into learning. As sad as that sounds, you kind of have to get your information across really subtly through different activities that I had, and then convince them that it was important enough for them to act on that. The rain barrel was really eye-catching, and people enjoyed coming in to sign it and take pictures of it, and I also had 4 students from Kemp's Landing come in and help me talk about my exhibit, which was really helpful. The QR code was not necessarily helpful with a lot of the older audiences, however, some of the younger kids were really into it. For instance, a little girl was begging her mommy to get her iPhone so she could look at the website. It was really cool how some of the younger generation integrates technology in their learning nowadays. I found that conservation was best tied in when I related it to something that people were familiar with. For instance, they calculated the amount of water that would be used in the production of one of their favorite meals, and people could understand things better in those terms. Although the trash bash and exhibits at the aquarium are constantly changing, and my exhibit therefore would not be able to have a permanent home there, the aquarium staff told me that it would be a wonderful option to create a classroom material out of that where teachers could bring it in every year and then instruct middle school and elementary students about water and conservation. So I plan on doing that in the future, which is great. The pros of my project were that it was tremendously helpful to take something that I was really passionate about and then turn it into something that I was familiar with. It was a really great sense of accomplishment at the end when I realized that everything that was on that table I had personally synthesized. And it was really cool to be able to interact with kids and guests and figure out that people were honestly paying to come see my project, which was really cool. Everyone really understands the struggle of being a senior and going through this, but obviously I am here and not wearing sweatpants, and I got through this project, so it wasn't too big of a con. However, there were some of the things that were out of my control that I could not handle, such as working through the aquarium. Their media branch isn't very good at communicating with outside sources because of things like bureaucracy. And I also couldn't control the amount of people that came to see my exhibit because the Shamrock Marathon was on the same day as the Trash Bash, which seriously inhibited the amount of people that came to see my exhibit. However, the group of people that I did get were extremely engaging and they really liked the final product. For instance, I had a family from Germany come over and spend about 40 minutes talking to me and taking pictures of all my exhibits, which was extremely rewarding. I had a very complex project, and with every complex project, there are tons of people that have affected it along the way. So I have plenty of thank yous, but I would like to especially thank Ms. Graves for helping me get involved with Governor's School because it was a wonderful experience and allowing me to basically create my own type of senior project, and being part of the capstone project was a wonderful experience. I would also like to thank Kemp's Landing Magnet School for all of their help in creating the materials, and especially Miss McDowell. I think she had to go back to teach this morning, but I would like to donate the rain barrel that the kids painted, as well as any of the material from the display that she would like to keep to Kemp's Landing at this time. So I would like to thank all of my friends, all the people on the list, and my family for putting up with me and letting me do things like go to Governor's School and drive around town all the time and stay up drinking coffee. And I would really like to thank my audience for being so wonderful. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the back and you can see my exhibit.